at some point, we all felt like we were failing, and we weren't. The system was.
I am much happier and healthier and doing all around better than when I left teaching, because when I left teaching, I was burning my candle at both ends.
And as a former teacher, I'm going to just go ahead and let the cat out the bag. No, we don't like your badass kids. The fuck? You don't even like them. Like, they're insufferable. Like,
22 years teaching. Here you go. Just summed up in a few short sentences.
So to my veteran teachers, what is your breaking point?
Confessions of a former teacher. Teaching isn't just about lesson plans or grading papers. For many teachers, it's the emotional, mental, and physical toll that eventually becomes too much. Today, we're going to hear directly from former teachers about the moment they decided they couldn't continue. As you watch, see if you notice the common themes that keep appearing.
Confessions of a former teacher. Nobody tells you that teaching is literally 8 hours of just being interrupted. Like, I'd start explaining something and it's, can I go to the bathroom? Okay, where was I? Everybody look at Paige. Mrs. She took my pencil. Okay, so the answer to number 3 is phone rings, intercom announcement, someone knocks on the door, kid spills a water, and somehow you're expected to remember exactly what you were saying before interruption number 6. I don't think I realized how mentally loud teaching was until I stopped doing it. You're constantly switching gears, constantly answering questions, constantly solving tiny problems. It's not the interruptions that bothered me, it's that your brain just never got a break. And I think that's one of the many reasons that teachers are so mentally exhausted by the end of it.
Since I'm leaving the classroom, I can finally admit the reason that I left had nothing to do with students. Not a single thing. Not one thing did it have to do with students. It definitely was the adults in charge.
and as a former teacher, I'm going to just go ahead and let the cat out the bag. No, we don't like your badass kids. The fuck? You don't even like them. Like, they're insufferable. Like, what you mean? I'm sorry, not sorry. Y'all raising up these little devils and just sending them to school for us to deal with. How am I supposed to like little Jimmy? He put his middle finger up to me every time I turn around. Like, huh? Give them grace. They just children. Children of the corn.
So I quit my job today as a high school teacher. Listen, mentally, it was so draining. I'm in therapy. Like, I started therapy. I'm dealing with depression from this job, and it's taken me completely out of my character. So I had to gain control of myself again. It snatched my soul, and it was messing with my health, my asthma. The quality of the air was really bad in the building, and I kept having asthma attacks and panic attacks, and just mentally, it just wasn't good for me. I'm just going to focus on my business. I've been down this rabbit hole so many times with teaching in the public school system, and it's just not the same no more. The internet and social media have destroyed the children. Like, these are not the same kids. I started teaching in 2002, and I started working in the school system actually in 2000 in Baltimore. These aren't the same kids. These ain't even the kids Whitney was talking about. That's the future. When I say disrespectful, cuss you out for no reason, these kids will take you out of character. And I just can't become a person that I'm not in this environment, because it really was taking me out of character. And mentally, I was in a bad place. So I'm just going to focus on me.
It's interesting that several teachers immediately say it wasn't the students who made them quit. Instead, they point to the system around them, administration, policies, and a lack of support. That's an important distinction because it changes where the real conversation needs to happen.
Anytime I do sit, I'm like hyper vigilant, very alert. And if I hear my front, like my classroom door start to open at all, I immediately stand up. It's just like a reflex. I cannot help it. It's so absurd. Do any of you do that? Number 2, my best lessons are spontaneous. I could plan lessons all day long, but in the moment sometimes something will just come to me, and I have had the best lessons because of that. I'll literally be scrambling to put something together because it'll hit me in that moment like, we should be doing this. Why didn't I think of this sooner? And I just make it happen right then and there, which is why I think lesson planning is only a little bit effective, because sometimes you just aren't in the right headspace yet. If one of my students asks me a question and I don't know the answer to, I make a really big scene about, You know, that is such a great question. I'm so glad you asked that. Why don't you go find the answer and let me know what you find out? I mean, I'll also admit to them that I don't know, but they can still go find the answer because I'm not. At the end of every quarter, when I know that we're completely done with all of the assignments, I just throw them all away. I throw all the work away. Because what else would I do? Sometimes, and this is pretty rare, so don't come for me, but sometimes if I see a student do something they're not supposed to do and I notice it, I sometimes choose to ignore it because I don't feel like handling it. And obviously, that is not true for like extreme things. This is just like little tiny things, you know. I'll see somebody flick a little piece of paper across the room and I just let it happen. Not at the expense of like chaos happening in my classroom, so don't get me wrong, but sometimes you just gotta ignore. You cannot deal with everything.
Confessions of a former teacher, the families I worried about most were never the ones asking questions. It was the ones who stayed quiet, the parents who felt embarrassed, the ones who thought they were supposed to have all the answers. The truth is, I never expected parents to reteach my lessons at home after their workday.
Teachers, I don't know if I'm the only one feeling this way. Please let me know. But I left education, not because of the pay. I know teachers are overworked and underpaid. Like, I was okay with that, kind of, but my main thing was just the amount of excuses and lack of accountability. I noticed a huge influx after COVID, and in my head I was like, okay, well, it's going to get better, It actually got worse. You know, kids were running rampant, getting in fights, doing whatever they wanted to do, and it was just no accountability. They would give one day of ISS and come right back to you like nothing happened, right? We were told if kids get in trouble, they can't go on a field trip. Kids got in a fight, still went on the field trip. Because, want to know why? We didn't want to hurt the kids' feelings. We didn't want to call the parents. And guys, I taught middle school. Grades. Kids can turn things in whenever they wanted to turn them in. And we still had to pass the kids. We were literally told, change their grade from a 67 to a 70. These are kids who did not do any work, did not show up to tutoring, and were supposed to change their grades. I never did that. I could not get behind that. So essentially, long story short, it's really the accountability and the excuses, because what are we teaching them? If we're teaching them that your actions don't have consequences, then how do you think their future is going to look? And I can't sign off on that. So I left.
And I just need to ask this question, like, why are kids not coming to school? Like, genuinely, somebody please explain this to me, because this was something that I fought and battled every single day as a teacher. And it just was absolutely demoralizing, because really what would happen is I would get kids that were chronically absent, right? Kids that would not come to my U.S. history class, like I would say 90% of the time. And at the end of the semester, I would get calls from their parents or calls from, my administration or counselors or whatever. And they would want me to pass these students. They would call and say, what can we do to pass this student? And I would just sit there and I understand where these stakeholders are coming from, but like, why is it my job to pass a student that has not showed up to class? I cannot show up at their house and drag them to school. I'm not going to, So I don't understand why they're not coming. Like, I get it. Like, it's not fun to get up and go to school. Nobody loves going to school. I mean, I liked going to school, but I think I'm an outlier. Most people don't want to go to school. I don't want to go to work some days, right? I don't want to get up and go to work. But why are so many kids not coming to school? And my only solution or my only explanation for this that I can think of is that like parents are enabling this behavior, that they either like don't know that their kid's not going to school, like maybe their kid is like lying to them, they're saying they're getting on the bus when they're not going, or the parents don't really care so much and they're like, yeah, it's fine, you can skip school. Like, I don't really know. But it was very irritating to me, and it was really frustrating trying to teach a class and do group work and do assignments and just do all sorts of things that you can't do when half your students are missing. And then at the end of the semester, it's your job as the teacher to pass them when they haven't showed up literally all year. And I just felt like that really was disrespectful to the work that I did as a teacher. It was undermining my ability to be successful as a teacher. And I just really, it was very frustrating to me. I did not understand why there were so many kids that just like never came to school. And when I was in high school, we had a policy that was like, I think it was like 10 days absent, like you get like suspended or something like that. Like it was very strict, or there what was the word for it? A truancy policy. There was a truancy policy. And is there no truancy policy anymore? Like, somebody please let me know what's going on with this chronic absenteeism, because it was crazy when I was a teacher. It was completely out of hand. And yeah, it really, really was. Yeah, it was a struggle.
I am much happier and healthier and doing all around better than when I left teaching, because when I left teaching, I was burning my candle at both ends. And there are Teacher Appreciation Week gifts that are literally like a candle, and it's like they are given this and told like, thank you for like burning your flame for other people. The extent to which a teacher's body, a teacher's psyche, a teacher's well-being are compromised in order to meet the needs of the school and of the students is staggering. I was always sick when summer break started. I was sick over any of the breaks because my body had been holding on for just long enough to make it to the next break. And at this point with teacher burnout, there are literal studies, academic studies, medical studies on the effects on the body that this has on humans. People who teach for decades are more likely to develop autoimmune conditions than their peers who did not. Almost all of the physical things that I struggled with when I was a teacher went away within months and then years of leaving teaching. I used to not sleep through the night, and I thought it was because I had had young children and had babies, but the insomnia wasn't because I was like tired or being interrupted in my sleep by babies. It was because of my job. As a teacher, I had frequent UTIs. I haven't had a UTI since leaving teaching. As a teacher, I got sinus infections so frequently that I was getting laryngitis, and I had pneumonia when I was 25 years old. I now travel for corporate. I travel all the time. I am on flights all the time, and I do not get sick. Like, I have so many days of sick leave just banked, and I'll just never use them. Whereas when I was a teacher, I never even had enough sick leave to take care of my own kids, much less myself. I'm no longer gaslit on a daily, weekly basis by parents, other teachers, students, administrators. Everything I need for work is paid for by work. I don't have to buy stuff to bring to work. And not that anybody was really clocking it, but none of the things that I mentioned included how much I was paid as a teacher, because I wasn't paid very much as a teacher, and I am paid appropriately now, but those weren't even the main reasons why I left teaching.
Another pattern is burnout. It's not just being tired after work. They're describing constant interruptions, never getting a mental break, anxiety, and even physical health problems. Teaching demands that you're on every minute of the day, and that level of focus is difficult to sustain year after year.
After 9 years of teaching, here's what I actually think. The parents I worried about the least were the ones that were emailing me every week. The parents I worried about were the ones I never heard of. Because usually if a parent was emailing me, showing up, asking questions, following up, it meant they cared. The kids that kept me up at night were the ones whose parents never answered emails, never came to conferences, never picked up their phone. So if you're the kind of parent who is constantly worried that you're messing everything up, you're probably sitting in a pretty good spot.
One of the assistant principals, kind of under his breath, like mumbles to me, but sort of not under his breath. He kind of goes, well, why didn't you break it up? Why didn't you stop the fight? Why didn't you get in there? And I'm just like, first of all, I'm still like completely in shock that I just witnessed what I witnessed. And then the fact that the assistant principal would even think that it's something that would be appropriate for me to do to put myself in that position. First of all, I'm going to get hurt. Okay, that's just going to happen. But second of all, the politics of putting yourself in physical confrontation with the student, that's an absolute no. Like, there's no telling what could happen. I could get sued. The kids could get hurt. No, I'm never, ever going to do that. It's not my role. And I just was like absolutely floored by that comment. And not to mention what had just happened prior. So I go back up to my desk, and this had been a difficult year, in general. I was struggling with a lot of things mental health wise. I had also had a surgery earlier that year in which I had to come back to school and keep teaching on a torn meniscus essentially, because I didn't have enough PTO. So I sat down on my chair at my desk in my office, and I just was like, what am I doing with my life? I am so unhappy. I'm so stressed. I come home every single day. Literally, I can't even speak because I'm so freaking exhausted. And this is like what happens to people in these roles. You get in trouble for not putting yourself in physical harm. I just couldn't rationalize the situation. And so that was the day that I just said, I'm done. We had 2 weeks to go till spring break. I said, spring break, I'm putting in my 2 weeks and I'm not coming back. And it was the best decision I ever made. I miss the students at times, and I do miss that sense of community within school and education that can be very comforting. But that's the day I decided to leave, and yeah, I'm much, much happier for it.
One issue that comes up all the time is accountability. Several teachers feel like they were expected to pass students who rarely attended class or completed little work. Whether you agree or disagree, it's clear they felt their professional judgment was being undermined.
I'm a former teacher and now parent, and I have a theory on the state of education and how awful it is right now. In my personal opinion, the entire system is broken. And in my opinion, it started to break down because of social media, but also because parents stopped parenting while simultaneously showing their kid what addiction looks like with this. Instead of addiction to alcohol, which may also be involved, or any other addictions, the addiction to this is very clear and in front of their face. And that gets me to my first point. I think society as a whole, we have a lack of love. Now, it's easy to quick retort, like, are you kidding me? There's millions of parents who don't love their kids? Not what I'm saying exactly. They definitely love their kids, but they're not realizing the importance of the future, the long term, and they're too focused on the short term, and they're screwing up the short term, which is screwing up the long term. If you want an easy life later, you have to go through hard now. If you keep choosing easy, then life is eventually going to be hard. And parents and schools, we are trying to make things as easy as possible for the kids, so therefore we are setting them up and throwing them into the mental health disorder. Because eventually, when they are helpless and they feel no purpose, they don't know what they're supposed to do in society, they feel like they can't afford anything, they feel like, and they have no mental capacity to have grit to be able to get through it. So they don't want to do anything because it seems pointless. But because they don't do anything, they feel worthless and therefore depressed. But again, all of it comes back to, does that person, that individual, feel the love of themselves and feel the love from their parents and feel that they accept themselves for who they are regardless? So even if they are helpless, but they love themselves for who they are. And I say this as being important about the individual because my parents loved me. I knew they loved me. But I would say it doesn't count. It's unconditional. So I need to find love elsewhere. And that's why I struggled for needing to find love elsewhere, because I didn't love myself and I needed someone else to love me to show me that. And I feel like that is happening a lot. Kids don't love themselves and they feel like they have no purpose. And that is then mental illness. But the only way to break out of that is kids have to learn to love and accept themselves and then start taking steps to improve, to get better as an individual, to read more, to have more knowledge, to do things for other people so other people are appreciative of those things, to get good at something that you can then bring to the table and then do for other people, regardless of whether it makes you a ton of money or not. It's about the mental. And I know you're like, well, I need the money. I understand. But the people who are more mentally well can then handle adversity and go through things to then make the money. So everything always starts with mental health. But right now, parents are creating the mental health disorder because they're not showing their kid that they love them and accept them for the way they are. And they're continuing to put them down, put them down, and put them down. You're not good enough. You need to do this and you need to do that. And while I understand being a parent and wanting your kid to be the best version of themselves, if they don't first know that you love and accept them for who they are, if that isn't integrated into them, you will lose them. And now, because of the disarray that's in schools, teachers who generally can fill that love piece, because a lot of teachers love their students, but now they're dealing so much with every single individual kid who all needs that love and attention, and they just can't separate themselves enough. This is why I had to leave. Like, there's nothing you can do. I don't have enough time to work with each individual one to show them that love, to show them that interest, to everything, because I can't be their parent. And that's ultimately why I also left, because I know that I need to be the best version of myself for my daughter so that she does have that. But I can't control, it's too much. The number one thing that should be talked about in school is learning how to handle your emotions, and simultaneously trying to direct kids in a direction where they do something that they love so that they feel purpose. And if they don't know what to do, then just be thankful and grateful and appreciate everyone and everything and show and do things with no expectation of receiving anything else. Those things build confidence. Those things make a human feel better. And ultimately, like I said, it all comes back to love. The only thing that's going to help schools, homes, the world is more love.
You can notice how many teachers still speak warmly about their students. Even those who left often say they miss the relationships and the classroom community. For many, leaving wasn't because they stopped loving teaching. It was because they felt they couldn't keep doing it under the current conditions.
So needless to say, the principal didn't like me for no reason at all. She just didn't want me in that position because she wanted somebody else in the position. And she would come in my room every single day, pretty much to make my life miserable. There was one time she even came in my room to tell me that my bulletin board paper was not conducive to learning. It was literally purple, glossy paper. And she told me that the color of my bulletin board paper was not conducive to learning. She'd make me rearrange my desks. She told me the placement of my TEs one time was in a place where my students could access them. So I needed to move my TEs. There was so many demeaning requests throughout the year. I could go on and on and on. And it made me come into the school building literally crying in tears every single day. I also was the type of teacher who stayed late all the time. It was a new position for me. It was my first time in a third grade classroom, so I stayed late pretty much every day, making sure that my students had everything they needed to be successful. And she even called me out one time in a faculty meeting saying that if teachers need to stay late past a certain time, then they need to just give up already because clearly something's not working.
Confession of a former teacher, I think one reason that people struggle to understand teaching is because they've never had to perform for 7 hours straight. And before someone gets mad, I'm not talking about acting, I'm talking about being on. You don't have a second to have a bad meeting and then shut your office door. You don't get to stare at your computer for 10 minutes to reset. You don't get to quietly have an off day because the second those kids walk in, you are on. Every question, every lesson, every transition, every interruption, every problem for 7 hours. And then people wonder why teachers are exhausted by June.
For those of you that are about to get pissy with teachers that leave in the middle of the school year, I'm waiting till the end of the year, okay? I am going to leave at the end. But if you're one of those teachers that wants to leave, leave. You don't owe anybody a thing. They didn't care about us for 2 years, so leave. You don't need to stay. You don't need to stay. I am going to wait till the end of the year, I think. But they wanted my letter of resignation already. Like, okay, you guys really don't care though, let's be honest. So I'm not going to put effort into it. So here you go if you want to see it. 22 years teaching. Here you go, just summed up in a few short sentences.
These stories won't represent every teacher's experience, but when so many independent voices describe similar challenges, it's worth paying attention. I'd love to hear your perspective. If you're a teacher, what resonated most with you? And if you're a parent, administrator, what do you think needs to change? Let's have a respectful discussion in the comments.